92.6 FM, Radio Verulam.
It's time for another guest in another one of our Live from Lockdown interviews. He's the creative director of OVO Theatre at the Maltings Arts Theatre in St Albans and has directed plays such as Much Ado About Nothing, Macbeth and As You Like It. Here to tell us about an exciting new project coming to a virtual theatre near you from OVO St Albans is Adam Nichols. Hello, Adam.
Hi, Daniel.
Nice to see you. It's nice to talk to you on FaceTime. So before we sort of get into 12th Night Live and all the stuff going on with OVO, how have you been? How are you and how have you been since lockdown started?
Oh, well, it's been a strange time, hasn't it? I've actually feel quite fortunate that I've had a bit of time on my hands. I was planning to move more into full-time theatre making this year. So it's actually given me a bit of an opportunity to switch off what I've been doing previously and really focus on the future. So I'm probably one of those annoying people that's actually found it, quite interesting, actually.
So, OVO Theatre, there's one question I've always been wanting to ask you, but what does OVO Theatre actually mean? The name OVO, when you came up with it?
Yeah, so it's from the Latin ab ovo, which means from the beginning, so from the egg. So that sense of creativity and birthing, I suppose, of theatre ventures and plays and so on. So yeah, it kind of symbolises that creative feel.
Oh, and when it comes to theatre, because of social distancing, it's unlikely that any live performances will be likely to happen anytime soon. And this is not just for local theatre; it's for London and Broadway as well. But you guys at OVO have a really nice idea of doing a play by Zoom. It's 12th Night Live, so talk me through the creative process of how you came up with the idea and, who got involved when and just the whole thing from the start.
Sure. So I have a bit of a thing about theatre on film or on screen generally, because I don't really think it works. And NT Live has obviously been a very popular initiative over the last few years, where the National Theatre initially, but now other theatres are involved as well. They film productions and they then screen them in cinemas. And I think that's great for people that perhaps live away from London and don't have the opportunity to access some of the great theatres that we have in London. But I've always found it a little bit of a dispiriting, alienating experience, because I think theatre has to be live. You have to be there. Otherwise, it's TV or film, and that's obviously a very different medium. So when lockdown started and it became clear that the theatre was going to be closed for some time, we probably didn't rush into producing loads of online content like a lot of other people have. Partly, as I say, because we just wanted to make sure that if we were going to do anything, it had to feel like an OVO show. But also because we wanted to figure out how we might be able to create something that really did engage the audience, that was live, that was interactive in some way, and that to the extent that you can do on screen, replicates the feeling of actually being in a theatre. So I suppose that was the context. We then started to think, okay, well, what can we do? And we did a production of 12th Night last year, which was very successful, and which worked both at the Maltings, but we also took it to the Rose Playhouse in London as well, which is an even more intimate space than the Maltings. And it just felt like that was a show that might translate quite well into a filmed environment. So, I mean, that to a certain extent was the creative process. We probably started working on it about a month ago, and I must say that I probably massively underestimated the scale of the challenge. It's been a fascinating process, but trying to create something, as I say, that feels live and interactive and theatrical, as opposed to just shooting a film, is tricky. And so it's really challenged me, the rest of the creative team. So I have Janet Pod, who often co-directs with me, working with me, Simon Nichols, who has created a lot of film for our productions in the normal theatre environment. He's directing the film side of things. Tom Cagnoni, who is our regular musical director, and Jill Priest, our choreographer. So thinking about the original show, I suppose we started off just looking at a basic conversion, if you like, of the show from one medium to another, but we quickly realised that actually we needed to go back and think quite a lot more fundamentally about how it would actually work in this medium. And it's a new medium. I mean, it's exciting to be working in a medium that lots of people are trying to create things through, an application in the shape of Zoom that wasn't designed for creative activity. It was designed for conference calling for business meetings. So thinking about how you can use the different elements of that medium to create something that's hopefully exciting and engaging for audiences has been, as I say, a big challenge, but also very exciting.
It is a challenge, yes, as you say, and I think I saw on social media, I think it was one of your actors, Anna Franklin, who's been on my show and is wonderful. She plays Lady Toby Belch in this, because you sort of swap the roles round, and there's a picture of her in front of a green screen and sort of giving a sort of a toast. And is that sort of, will the actors sort of perform from home, and sort of how are they sort of interact with each other without interacting with each other?
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you picked Anna, because Anna's husband, Will Franklin, is also in the show. And they've not acted together for many years, but we did Twelfth Night. I directed it about 12 years ago, and they were both in it then, playing the roles that they're playing in his case, playing the role that he's playing now, in her case, playing a different role. They are the only two cast members who are actually in the same place at the same time. But they also have a 4-year-old son who occasionally makes appearances in our rehearsals, and will hopefully stay backstage during the performances, budding performer though he is. So that actually those two have been able to interact more normally, I suppose, because they're in the same place. But yeah, everyone's in their houses, hopefully in a room that is relatively quiet and undisturbed. And they've had to create a little mini theatre, in their front rooms. So as you say, they've all got green screens, because we're using the green screen technology to create settings and backdrops for the various locations in the play. They're also doubling as sort of technicians as well, because there's quite a lot that they have to do in terms of sound and lighting as well, which is absolutely critical. If you've been watching any of the kind of TV adaptation of Zoom in things like news and current affairs programmes, one of the challenges is getting the lighting right and getting the audio right, because if you're in a TV studio or on a film set, you've obviously got someone there who's working on the acoustics to make it sound really good. When you're sitting in your front room or in your office like I am now talking to you, you get a certain amount of bounce and echo. And I'm sure you found this making your programme, Daniel, from home, that is very different from a studio environment. But I also think to some extent that people understand that now, after whatever it's been, 3 months now, people are used to seeing people in that sort of environment. What we've also tried to do is get away from the classic kind of head and shoulders on Zoom kind of view that is ubiquitous now, and get the actors actually, to the extent that they can do, moving around, creating more dynamics in actually what they're doing, so that you're not just watching someone sitting there sort of still for an hour and 15 minutes. Hopefully there's a bit more interest than that we're managing to create.
So you got the Shakespeare, you've got the sort of sense or the essence of the live theatre aspect, you've got everything pretty much that you did with last time, but how obviously it's two performances are very different. So what's the difference between Twelfth Night live and the actual performance that was shown last year?
Well, we've got music as well, and that's probably been the most challenging dimension actually of doing this online. Is getting a decent production of the musical numbers, because there's quite a lot of songs in the show as well, and a live band. But we've managed to work that out technically, how we do that. What are the differences? Well, obviously you've got 11 actors, apart from 2 of them, all in different locations. So trying to create a sense that people are in the same location has been interesting, but obviously you have to do that in a different way, because you haven't got people standing next to each other or opposite each other on a stage. Trying to create a sense of action happening across a number of different frames that you see on a Zoom call has been another interesting challenge. So trying to kind of if somebody's passing something to somebody or they're throwing something to somebody, how do you actually sort of play with the technology to make that appear to be happening and to create a bit of an illusion, whilst at the same time recognising that the audience knows that everybody's sitting in their front rooms. They know that they're not sitting in a studio somewhere together making the show. So those things are probably going to feel different, but hopefully we'll still have a theatrical dimension to them. I suppose the other big difference from the original show is that we've tried to introduce more interactivity. I think the view that I've come to is that you feel like you're engaged in a good play, whatever that play is. If you're sitting in the theatre and it's a good show, you feel like you're being engaged. You feel like the actors are engaging you directly. Obviously, when you're putting a screen between people and you're sitting there on your own, either as an actor or as an audience member, creating that sense of connection is difficult. So I suppose the biggest difference is that we've created different elements within the show where there is some direct interaction between the cast and the audience, so that hopefully when you're watching, you actually feel like you're part of it and you're there with the actors, rather than feeling distant and sort of alienated behind a screen.
Oh, so it's a sort of Shakespeare and meets postmodern jukebox meets a secret cinema, pretty much.
Yeah, so there's an immersive element to it. I'm a big fan of immersive theatre, and it's a sort of genre of theatre that's become very popular, I think, over the last few years, where you get more of an event type feel. And as you say, you've mentioned secret cinema, which has obviously been hugely successful. That sense that actually you're going along to see a show, but you're also being brought into the world in different ways. And we're very much hoping that people will dress up, will come with appropriate beverages, which we're providing a little bit of prior input to help people with, and really, get into the spirit of the period, which is the 1920s on a cruise liner. Get that real sense that you're actually there with the actors in the world that we're creating.
Yeah, we'll quickly talk about your creative team and sort of casting creators for 12th Night Live, because it's the same people that you've worked with before, and obviously you're sort of swapping roles and like swapping characters. For characters that are male, you've changed into female, and the actual sort of rehearsal process for this, do you all kind of join each other on a big call and sort of rehearse the scenes, or do you sort of do you sort of break it down a bit more in more detail?
A bit of both. I mean, actually, one of the things that's been weirdly straightforward has been rehearsing on Zoom. That has felt very normal and hasn't really felt, weirdly enough, particularly different to rehearsing face to face. I think it helps that most of the cast have worked together before, so you sort of have got that existing knowledge of how people work. Although we have got a couple of new actors that have come in to this particular cast that haven't worked with us before. So we kind of, it's a normal sort of rehearsal process, working on big scenes or small scenes, whatever. There's quite a lot of smaller scenes in this play where there's just sort of 2 or 3 people in a scene. We come together, and I suppose, as I say, really rehearse in a pretty normal way. There's probably more focus on the technical side, because normally the actors don't have to worry about the camera, the lighting, the sound, because normally they've got other people around them that are figuring that stuff out. So that's probably taken up more of the rehearsal time. And obviously, as I say, just adjusting to a new medium. Some of our actors have got film and TV experience, but a lot of them don't. And in any case, most of them would consider themselves to be more sort of theatre than screen actors. And actually, the style of acting is quite different. When you're on a screen, anything that's big and broad that you'd get away with even in a fairly small theatre just overwhelms when you're on screen. So it's a much more subtle, probably more naturalistic style of acting that the cast have had to adjust to.
Okay, so if we want to get sort of dates for this, how can what are the dates? How can people book tickets, and how can we watch this?
Sure. So it's on Zoom, as you've already mentioned. The performances that we've scheduled are from the 12th to the 14th of June.
Oh, so that's next week.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Next week.
And it's going to be, that's next weekend, yeah. And it's going to be at 8:15 each night. It runs to about an hour and a quarter, the show. So no interval, an hour and 15 minutes.
And there's no interval?
There's no interval.
Okay.
There's no interval, but obviously you can refresh yourself as you're watching to your heart's content. Yeah, I
suppose that's a nice thing. If you're sort of wanting to go to the bar for a top up, you can if you're in your own house. So exactly. it makes an interesting experience watching it.
Exactly. So you can do that. And tickets, www.ticketsource.co.uk/OVO. And you can also find more information on the website, which is www.maltingstheatre.co.uk. So there's a whole bunch more information on there, a little bit of film, photos, all sorts of stuff on there for people that are interested in finding out more about the show, and hopefully see you there. And definitely we're looking, this is a bit of an experiment obviously, but we're looking to do further performances as well if it goes well. And if there's the demand there, it's something we'd like to do more in the future.
We're almost out of time, but Adam, people have been in touch in the week with some questions for you, if you'd be happy to answer them. So the first question is from another Daniel in Albury, and he asks, what inspired you to direct Twelfth Night?
Well, it's a play that I've always loved, and why I love it is because it's very funny, but it's also very dark. So it has both those elements. Lovely characters, but also some great poetry, some really lovely poetry in there as well. So yeah, it kind of ticks all the boxes for me as a director.
Do you have any particular favourite Shakespeare lines or plays or both? And that's from Matt and Molly in Aldgate.
There's loads. It's hard to sort of pick out a particular line, but I suppose in this particular play there is a beautiful speech delivered by Viola that isn't probably not actually that well known, where she's talking about what she would do if she was in love, and the speech, I won't give you the whole speech, but the speech starts, "Make me a willow cabin at your gate," and it's those little 3 or 4 lines that you get in these speeches that often, as I say, aren't particularly well known, but are just very beautiful and very evocative that I love.
So how does directing a play by Shakespeare differ from directing the work of any other playwright? And that's from Tim and Joe from St Albans.
I don't think it differs that much, really. I mean, there's obviously the language dimension, where if you've got actors that are less experienced in performing Shakespeare, then there's often work to be done in deciphering the text. But I kind of think that with a great play, you do that anyway. You know, if you're looking at Harold Pinter, who's obviously a modern playwright, a lot of directing a Pinter play is about what he doesn't write as opposed to what he does. So I don't think it's particularly different in the process, but certainly, you know, bringing the language to life, making the language resonate with a contemporary audience is probably something that's an additional dimension with Shakespeare than a modern playwright.
So apart from Twelfth Night, what's been your favourite play at OVO to direct? And that's from Chris in Park Street.
That's a really, really difficult question to answer. I suppose I would probably have to say As You Like It, because it was the first show that we took down to the Minack Theatre in Cornwall, and it was just a very magical experience, the whole thing. But I think I've enjoyed every project I've done, really, and I think, you know, I'll go back to your earlier question, Daniel. Some of the modern stuff that I've done as well, as the Shakespeare, brings a different sort of satisfaction. But yeah, if you push me, I'd probably say As You Like It. Okay,
fair enough. What's next for OVO after Twelfth Night Live? That's from Andy.
So it's a difficult question to answer because we don't really know when the theatres are going to be open. So we've got the rest of our spring season that we had to postpone, that we will remount as soon as we're allowed to open the theatre. What I'm excited about at the moment, which I can't say too much about at the moment, but hopefully we'll be able to over the next couple of weeks, is that we're developing an open air concept that I'm very excited about, that would enable us to reopen hopefully quite quickly, and give us some certainty to start programming really through to the end of the year. So I'm excited about that. I'm also excited about what we're doing at the Maltings, expanding the programme there, developing more into a sort of full-time rep type of model, and talking to some really amazing associate companies that are hopefully going to come in alongside us on a more regular basis and start producing work at the Maltings. So those conversations are very exciting, and we've got some really great companies that want to come and bring their work or produce their work, make their work at the Maltings, and that I think will be very exciting.
Yeah, it does. It does sound very exciting. What I think this makes a really nice question to round things off. It's from Jamie in Abbots Langley, and he says, what advice would you give to any aspiring creatives who want to work in theatre?
Just start making work. Find any way you can to make work. And try and get some experience with, just producing stuff. I think it's quite hard if you're an actor, because you sort of you certainly need a director and you need other people around you. But if you're on the creative side, if you're looking at directing or lighting, sound, costume, set design, whatever it may be, I think just taking any opportunity you can to make work and get experience is what you need to do. And it's a tough industry, it's a tough world to break into. But I think, just getting that experience, getting that foot in the door, is what's critical. And then, hopefully, seeing people seeing your work and, developing from there. So, yeah, I would say just take any opportunity you can to get involved and make work.
Oh, well, thank you very much for that advice. Right, that should basically round things off to a nice close. So Twelfth Night Live is the interactive online musical from OVO Theatre. It's on next week from the 12th to the 14th of June. Tickets are available to buy now. Do OVO have a web... I know OVO have a website, but does OVO have a website?
Yes, so www.ovo.org.uk.
Okay, and I suppose if people want to sort of find out more, they can just go to OVO. They can just sort of type in OVO St Albans into Google and... Yeah. Hey presto.
If you Google OVO Theatre, you get straight to us.
Okay, perfect. Right, well, Adam, that kind of leaves things off to a nice close. Thanks for sort of talking to me about Twelfth Night and answering those questions. Hope to see you soon for another production, hopefully when you reopen in the near future.
Looking forward to it.
Yes, all right. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.
Bye.
Radio Verulam at the weekend.
It's the bit you and I